there's a couple of things that you just said. One was I used to think that development was developing the business, like an external thing, not me, the business. And what you said was that it was actually about developing you.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, and I have the privilege of working with some great leaders in some great businesses today, and I have noticed that some of the people that are thinking of stepping into a conversation of being coached are slightly concerned about, is it going to unravel me? Is our skeleton's going to come out the cupboard? The mind goes to, what's the worst that can happen if I start thinking about who I am as a person? What's the worst that can happen if people don't think about who they are as the person, the vehicle, the leader, the inspirer, the educator, the motivator?
So to answer that question, I need to be personal about myself, and I'm at the stage now where most of the decisions that I made around the time that I was considering my own journey were fear-based decisions. And most of those decisions were based around thought processes that were holding me back. And the last part of that was that I also felt that if I exposed myself in any form of development program, that the persona that I'd been paddling with to get me to the point that I was at was vulnerable and would be under attack, and I'd be then exposed as this sort of not quite as good, not quite as worthy, not quite as dynamic, when in actual fact, taking those layers of sort of superficial self-confidence and actually getting to the real me, whilst it was a couple of steps back sometimes, was then 5 steps forward in the long run. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. It does. And what I think people fall in love with about people is when they see a glimpse of vulnerability. So the persona that we think everybody needs to see about it is actually the barrier. Yeah. But we think it's our convincer, don't we? In sales, we think that we're stuck on convincers, and we think being robust and I've got it together and you could have a life like mine is a convincer. And in fact, I think it's a destroyer. And I think that glimpse into humanness, into real life, and oh God, I've just made a complete mistake, those kind of things, people fall in love with that. And it's that heart-to-heart connection that perpetuates sales and people working together, not our perceived perfection. And
so one of the most successful people that I work with exposes himself in a vulnerability way that I take him for what he is, and it's created a stronger bond between us because he's not the big I am, and yet he's one of the most successful people I know. And that's the thing, that us being us, me being me, I think in some situations, even though we don't consciously know it, we can tell when people are really trying to be something. And then it's a little bit thin, and then it's not believable. And then it goes back to what I said right at the beginning, which is, I'm not sure whether I'm feeling you, but you can't tell what that feeling is. But when people are real, then I think that people that have helped themselves and faced up to some of the difficulties, because I'd like to be more this, I'd like to be more that, and I'd like to be more the other. But actually, I know that every day I'm a little bit closer, and I'm working a little bit more in a more this is a hard point to get across, because I'm looking right inside at myself at this moment to say that it's easy to want to be Mr. Organised, Mr. Professional, Mr. this, Mr. that, Mr. the other. But there's always a challenge. There's always something coming along. We're all pulled in different directions all the time. We've got work, we've got home, we've got family, we've got the past, we've got the future, all those things that maybe the future might not be quite as good as I expect it's going to be, or maybe I want it to be better because I'm not enjoying me now. And the past wasn't so great because that wasn't great. So really, then all of a sudden now ends up like being nothing, because now ends up being either worrying about the past or not, or hoping that the future's going to be better. And so for me, I'm concentrating every single day on, can I do really well today? Can I make a lot of progress today? Sometimes I can't. That's my story.
I think it feels to me, listening to you and knowing you, is I feel like you have a massive commitment to holding on to your truth, as in, I want to be authentic in everything I do. I don't want to put on a show. I don't want to pretend. I just want to be. I just want to trust that being me is good enough, and the right people want to work with that version of you, which is the true you.
You know, when you talked about people going on the coaching journey, and I think that what happens with a lot of people when they're thinking of going on the coaching journey is that they bring the story that somebody once told them, the prejudgments of what that might be, and when I think about how you go about what you do, and I know you, and we've got this scenario of knowing each other over the years of our journey together, that actually most of the people that I know that go through a growth process will feel growing pains, because that's part of growing, isn't it? Being a bit uncomfortable. I have a really good analogy of Usain Bolt and his 100 meters, which is that he doesn't canter over the 100 meters with a cup of tea in his hand over the finishing line, does he? You know, he's worked his arse off for years. He's done everything. He's ate correctly. He's thought about his psychological state. He's prepared. He's trained. He's got into peak performance mode, so he's actually peaking at the right time. And then on that day, he's got nothing else in his mind other than achieving. And I think that bringing that to our people and bringing that to myself is almost that thing about holding myself accountable for getting better. So every day for me, I think, how can I get the bar up a little bit? And every day when something comes to take it down, I'm thinking, how do we sort of push back to push it up?
But I also see that you take those, every time something comes along and drops the bar a bit, feels like the bar's dropping a bit, you take it as an opportunity of continuous improvement, strengthening and learning, and using that as strength to push it up. Am I right?
Can I say shit happens?
Yeah. There's another saying as well, it doesn't have wheels, so stop dragging it around.
No. And that is, that to me, when I hear people talking about their problems, what I think they're doing is they're sort of investing more into that. For me, it's happened. The milk's out of the bottle. It's on the floor. Okay, so what's the best thing we can possibly do? It's easy to say because quite often 3 bottles of milk get spilled on the same day, or 3 situations arise, or just when you didn't need anything else bad to happen, the next bad thing happens. There's a moment, I think, when we stop that process. There's actually a moment when we say, and a good one is that, you know, you stub your toe in the morning, you think, right, today's going to be shit now, I'm going to drop my coat in the puddle, I'm going to drop my car keys, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to do that, do the other. Those days existed for me in the past, where I perpetuated that energy throughout the day. Now I work as hard as I can to take it that stuff's happening around me, and just when I don't need the next bad thing to happen, I know, be ready, be resilient, but not denying it, because I think the worst thing we can do is say, oh, everything's fine. It's actually it's not fine. That's a piece of shit, and that's horrible, and that's happened. Actually, what's the best thing we can do with that to then move on to the next thing? And eventually, we turn the tide.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I hope you enjoyed the film. If you did, please like and share. And if you've got any comments or any questions, just leave them in the box below and I'll come back to you there. Also, the links to my website, Power for Success, are below as well. Have a little look around there. And I hope you enjoy the channel and have a really lovely day.